Okay, we're going to cover Unit 1, Lesson 2, Section 3, Exercises 19, 20, and 21, working mostly with the indirect object that we just learned. So in Exercise 19, it asks us to translate and also to diagram sentences 3, 5, and 9. I've chosen number 5 to do for you guys today. But also note that it says, warning, one Latin sentence has no indirect object. Can you find that sentence? I left that one for you guys to discover on your own. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to read the sentence. The sentence is, Deus filio regnum dedit. So starting at the first word, Deus, we know we learned Deus Dei, so us e puts this in the second declension masculine. And we know our stem is de, so us is our ending. And we'll look at us and on our second declension masculine chart, and it only shows up one time. So it shows up as the nominative singular. So we know that this is the subject of our sentence. Next we have filio. Filio, we learned filius, filii, so that would be second declension singular as well. Looking for our o ending, we see that it appears in the dative singular and also in the ablative singular. Next up is regnum. Regnum, regni, so that is second declension neuter, and we know that in the neuter, when we have the of the second declension neuter, it appears both the nominative singular and the accusative singular. And lastly, we have dedit. And dedit, ending in the T, tells us that that is third person singular. So this is a singular verb. So our verb needs to agree with our subject in number. We see up here, we know that this is a subject because it has to be, it's nominative singular. So singular, singular, they agree, we're good there. So now what are we saying? That God gave what? So we need an object that it's giving and a person that he's giving it to, or a thing that he's giving it to. So we've learned our indirect object is going to be in the dative case. I only see one dative right here, so that's who he's giving it to. And giving, so we need a direct object. What is he giving? We need an accusative. So here's our accusative, our object that's being given. So we have God gave who or what? Well, gave son. So this is capitalized son, so we know we're talking about his son. So we could say the son, or we could say his son. And what did he give him? Regnum. And regnum is kingdom or royal power. So you could choose either one. I'm going to say royal power. So I have God gave his son royal power. It could also be God gave the son royal power, or God gave royal power to his son. Any of those translations will work. Now they've asked us to diagram the sentence. So Henle teaches us to diagram this, putting our subject first, Deus, and now our verb, dedit, and then we have our indirect object, regnum, and they're telling you to put your, our direct object, regnum, and then they're telling you to put the indirect object down here on a little stair step. So that would filio. So that's one way to do it, but also another way I've learned in Classical Conversations Essentials is to put the subject, the verb, and then the indirect object, and after that, our direct object. So feel free to use whichever you are more comfortable with. If you have not learned another form, using the way Henle teaches you is just fine, or you can use a way that's already familiar to you. The point is to understand how the words are being used in the sentence, and as long as we're understanding that, it's okay. So next up, we are going to do exercise 20. And exercise 20 tells us to translate. So we're going to be translating from English into Latin. Starting with the sentence, God gave a kingdom to Christ. So who is the subject? Who is giving? God is giving. So God is our nominative. And is it singular or plural? It is singular. So for God, we know it is Deus, Dei, us, e, being in the second declension. So we're going to look at the nominative singular second declension ending. And that gives us the ending of us. Now gave, being our verb, it's going to go at the end of the sentence, but we still need to make sure it's agreeing with its subject in number. So we look up here, and God is singular, so we know we need to make gave also singular. Now, a kingdom. So he's giving a kingdom, so a kingdom would be our direct object. And direct objects always go in the accusative. And accusative, is that singular or plural? Well, that's singular. So we think to the word kingdom, royal power. So we have regnum, regni. So regnum, regni is e ending. That makes it second declension neuter. And a second declension neuter having the accusative singular ending of Lastly, what is he giving the kingdom to? Well, he's giving the kingdom to Christ. So Christ becomes our indirect object. And our indirect object always goes in the dative case. And is this singular or plural? It's singular. So our dative singular of Christ, Christ being Christus, Christi, us e, is second declension masculine. So we look for the dative singular of second declension masculine, and we have the ending of o. So let's go ahead and write this out. We're going to start with our subject, God, de, with the ending of us, deus, saving our verb for the end of the sentence. Moving on to our direct object of kingdom. So reg, regn, we're having the ending of regnum, Deus regnum. Now to Christ, we have our dative singular Christ with the stem of Christ, C-H-R-I-S-T, Christo. And lastly, can't forget about our verb. We don't want to leave that out. And gave is dedit when you're talking about the singular. So dedit. Deus regnum Christo dedit. All right, number 2 is going to be a little bit trickier. So we have he being our subject. He gave a sword to the friend, but not to the slave. So he is our subject. We don't have God or the sailors or Mary as our subject, so we know that he can be implied where? In our verb. So gave is dedit or dedirent. He is a singular form. It's just one, not plural. So we know our gave also needs to be singular. So we would be using the dedit. All right, what is he going to give? He's going to give a sword. So we have gladius, gladii. So this would be our direct object, which makes it accusative. And is it one or more? It's one. So singular, accusative singular. We're going to think of the word gladius, gladii. Us, e puts it in the second declension masculine. Looking in the second declension masculine, scroll down to find your accusative singular of Now, who's he giving the sword to? He's giving the sword to the friend. So the friend would be our indirect object. Indirect objects are always put in the dative case. And is friend singular or plural? It's singular. Now thinking to our Latin word of friend, amicus, amici. So us, e makes this second declension masculine. So we're going to look for our dative singular of the second declension masculine, and we end up with a long O. Now we're given but, not the slave. So we need to add on to this sentence with but, not the slave. So we have the word but, which we know is said. And how do we express not in Latin? Well, not would be known, right? Generally, we've used this to be talking about not giving, and so it's been describing the verb, or to not praise, but this time it is describing not the slave. So known is going to be modifying the slave, so it's going to stand directly before the slave in the sentence. And the slave, what is the slave acting as in this sentence? Well, he gave a sword to the friend, but not to the slave. So this too is a nice hint that we're looking at another indirect object, which would be in the dative case. And slave being singular, dative singular. So slave is servus, servi. So us, e ending tells us it is second declension masculine. And the dative singular of second declension masculine is a long O. All right, let's go ahead and try and translate this sentence. Starting with our subject, there's not one to declare. Our subject is going to be built into our verb. So we're going to go on to the next word, our accusative, our direct object, and we have sword. So sword is gladius, gladii, but we're going to put the ending. So gladi, Going on to the next word, as we've skipped our verb. Next word is the friend. Friend being amico, because we're adding the O. So A-M-I-C, long O. So the sword to the friend, but. So before we do that but, we're going to go ahead and finish this first phrase. So he gave the sword to the friend. So gave the sword to the friend, and we're going to put our verb after this, because this is our full thought before we've added on this extension. So now we're going to give dedit in our singular. So he gave the sword to his friend, or to the friend. And now we're going to do our extension. Anytime you see an and or a but, you can consider that an extension, unless it's connecting, like say, two subjects or two direct objects. This is connecting another thought. So we're going to say but, which is said. But what? But not the slave. So we have known, slave, servus, servi. So we're going to start with our stem of serv. And we're going to add our ending of o, servo. So this is one example of, they said verbs generally stand last in the sentence. Well, our verb is up here. It's not quite at the end, but it is at the end of this complete thought up here before we have added on to our sentence with the but, not the slave. All right, and lastly, we are going to do number 21. And 21 asks us to complete these sentences and to translate. So we're going to start by completing the sentence. We're going to read what we can. We have Christus de which is the stem for God, and with, which is the stem for see. So Christ, what? Sees. And so Christ is the subject of our sentence. Christus, that makes it our nominative. Sorry, I'll write nominative instead of subject. Nominative, and is Christus singular or plural? It's singular, so it is our nominative singular. And since our subject is singular, we know what about our verb? Our verb has to agree in number with our subject, so our verb must also be singular. And we know that we det is our singular of see. All right, so just the singular T at the end. Now, Christ sees, he sees God. God being our our direct object, and a direct object is always put in the accusative, so we're going to look for the accusative singular of God. And God is Deus, Dei, putting it in the second declension masculine. Looking through for our accusative singular, we find So we have Christus Deum videt. Translating that out, we end up getting Christ sees God. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.